I see the example of people my age or a few years older than me. They seem to know where they are, especially in regenerative works. People seem to be having worked on that for so many years and built on amazing path and journeys and connections. And I feel like I'm really starting now and almost too late. And I know it's not the case, but it's just, addition of feeling a bit late in the game and not sure of what I have to bring. So just taking a step would be more than where I am today.
Welcome to the Regenerative Work-Life Podcast. If you are ready to make the leap out of your corporate job and into purposeful regenerative work, this is the show for you. As you've probably discovered, transitioning into regenerative work is a lot more complicated than going on a job board and sending off your CV. This journey you are embarking on means taking risks, going against the grain, overcoming challenges, and writing your own script. It takes entrepreneurial muscle, powerful vision, and a willingness to change. Having a mentor by your side makes all the difference. I am your host, Alyssa Murphy. I have worked with hundreds of impact-focused businesses and individuals, and I am here to help you. Let's take things one step at a time as I show you how to quit corporate, find your vision, and successfully transition into regenerative work. Here we go. Welcome back to the Regenerative Work-Life Podcast. Today is a Regenerative Sticking Point episode, and I'm going to be coaching with Cloé. Now, like many people, Cloé was feeling really frustrated with her corporate job and the lack of impact that she was able to have within corporate sustainability. She really wanted to find an option for what she could do that felt impactful enough, that felt like it met the scale of all of the challenges that surround us. And that desire had actually got her quite stuck because she had so many ideas, so many different options that she wanted to explore, but at the same time she kept questioning whether they were going to have enough impact, whether she was really qualified to do those different ideas. And you'll hear in this coaching episode that Cloé really had a turnaround as we just focused on the simple idea of getting to action, of just picking an option and moving forward with it. And I was so uplifted by the joy and the creativity and the ease that Cloé unlocked, and this beautiful idea that she has decided to move forward with that might be the springboard for something else, might be the catalyst that changes her whole career, might just be a wonderful experience that she shares with her family. Who knows? But I'm so pleased that she's feeling empowered to move forward and make a difference with it. And I hope you really enjoy listening to our coaching conversation together. Just before I introduce you to Cloé, may I remind you and extend my invitation to you to come on the podcast with me and do live coaching just like Cloé did. As you'll hear today, these conversations are easy, they're natural, they're fun, but they might just change the course of your career. Visit regenerativeworklife.com/sticking point and choose a time that works for you. Now, let's meet Cloé. Hi, Cloé. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining us for a Regenerative Sticking Point episode.
Hello, Alyssa. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Why don't you start by telling us about where you're feeling stuck?
I am feeling stuck because as much as I want to step out of the corporate life, I don't know where to start. I am interested in so many different things that it's hard to focus on one. And when I do, I hit a point where I feel I'm not qualified enough. I can't do that, or it would take too long to train and be of help in that department. And that is linked to the fact that I want to have so much impact and And in a way, I don't think it's possible to solve everything at once. And this is kind of what I'm trying to do, which is where I'm stuck.
Okay, so it sounds like perhaps the extent of your desire to make change happen is actually getting in your way a little bit.
Yeah, I think you could sum it up like that exactly.
Okay, and you mentioned wanting to get out of the corporate life. What sort of level of urgency, if you like, is that desire to step out of the corporate life at for you?
It's pretty high. I think when I message you, I say it's driving me insane. So it sounds pretty urgent. I'm sure I can cope for a bit longer, but it's just like it's really grinding to feel that you're kind of wasting time. So in that aspect, it's very hard. But I've been working. I graduated over 10 years ago, so I've been coping with it for 10 years. I think I can do a bit longer, but I need to start the process of stepping out and feel that I am moving out of that corporate life.
Yes, and it sounds like the piece that you're missing, and please tell me where I'm wrong, but to begin that stepping out is that clarity on which of all of these options that are before you, all of the different things that you feel interested, like where you're actually going to focus on and step into.
Yes, it's kind of, I know I want to go somewhere, but I don't know where yet. So I need kind of that direction to start walking the path. And maybe the option I've thought of are not even the ones I'm going to go for, because I think more often than not we are blind to our own strength. So it's hard for me to see what I have to bring at this point. So it's hard, obviously, to see what I can do in the future.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point that you made there about being blind to our own strength, because I know you already mentioned as well that when you do look at these different ideas and these different options, then you come up against this thought of, yeah, but I'm not qualified and, I'm going to have to retrain. So I think it's great that at the same time you realize that you may have a lot more capacity and capability than you're aware of right now. And I think in terms of that clarity, the other thing that I want to just offer to you is perhaps it's not so important which choice you make right now. Perhaps the most important thing is that you get started.
Yeah, I think we're touching on something that's been relevant in many areas in my life. It links with the fact I want to have so much impact that I don't start anything. So I want to have so much clarity that I don't get started on anything just in case this is not the right path. So yeah, I guess you're touching something here.
Yeah, because I think it's really understandable, when we look at, of course, the scale of the challenges that we're dealing with. I think it's really natural to want to make a choice that's going to match the scale of those challenges. But as you've identified yourself, the problem with that can be you're setting yourself such a high standard and such a kind of difficult task to achieve that actually what you're doing is you're not actually doing anything, because you're waiting for something that feels enough. And actually what I would love to explore with you, if you're open to it, is what does it look like just to get to action, just to try putting these ideas into practice and kind of give yourself the freedom that you can start something and then it might shift and evolve. It might open up a new pathway, and that you don't need to have the answer for what is this one big impactful thing that I'm going to do. You don't need to know that yet. You just need to get started in that direction.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think because I see the example of people my age or a few years older than me, they seem to know where they are, especially in regenerative works. People seem to be having worked on that for so many years and built on amazing path and journeys and connections. And I feel like I'm really starting now and almost too late. And I know it's not the case, but it's just, yeah, the addition of feeling a bit late in the game even though I know it's still the very beginning of thinking outside of the box in terms of work life, and not sure of what I have to bring. So just taking a step would be more than where I am today.
Right. And the other thing about, about taking steps is that when we actually, I know you will have heard me talk about this on the podcast a lot. I often talk about getting to action or moving to action. And the reason for that is that just the very process of doing something, of making any kind of progress, brings us such a shift in energy. It really changes our confidence. It kind of opens up our horizons. And I think often a lot of the very natural kind of anxieties, some of which you've described to us, these thoughts that come up and tell us, well, actually, I don't think I'm qualified, and I'm kind of coming at this a bit late, and look at these other people who really know exactly what they're doing in the regenerative field, and why aren't I at that stage? Those kind of anxieties, I think, are really compounded when we're in inaction, because we have no sort of creative outlet. And creativity is really the opposite of anxiety. It's such a great way to unlock ourselves out of those unhelpful thoughts when we're actually, getting our hands dirty, we're actually doing something, we're taking a step forward. So that's what I would really love to find with you today. And I'd love to hear if that feels like what you need is, let's worry less about exactly what that step is and really focus on how you can actually take a step. Let's just pick something and focus on how you can get to action. How does that feel to you?
No, that feels right. I'm writing a book, and I just finished the first draft, and suddenly it feels so much easier because I have something to work with. It's far from perfect. It's not where I want it to be. So it feels like it's the same with my work life. Take a step and work, build on that. So yes, let's do this.
Yeah. What an incredible achievement. Like, you clearly are capable of creating things, even getting to a first draft is an incredible step. And exactly as you say, working on a draft is so much less overwhelming than, a big blank sheet of paper.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me about some of the ideas. You said there are so many things you're interested in, so many ideas that you've had. Can you give me a few examples of the ones that are kind of there at the front of your mind?
So I played with the idea of developing mushroom farming, just because we love eating mushroom in my family, and it would be something I could do without having to work for someone, which is something I'm struggling more and more with. I had the idea of opening a place to meet people. I don't know if it would be a cafe, a yoga studio, but that would allow for people to get together, get that sense of community, and maybe start trying to better the community in which I live. I had the idea of trying to offer my services to company to help them work towards degrowth, because it's a topic I'm passionate about. And then in front of each of these ideas, you could have a lot of yes, but.
Yeah, of course. There's, there are always going to be so many yes buts. And, for the course of our conversation today, I want us just to, they're going to come up, and that's fine. But let's just recognize them, for what they are, and just sort of just let them sit in the back somewhere. They can just watch for the purposes of this conversation. So you shared 3 ideas with me here: mushroom farming, a kind of community cafe, and some kind of advisory service around degrowth. Now, before we think about which of these we might choose, I want to share a concept with you that I work with my clients on, which is around guiding questions. So this is really deciding for yourself what are the kind of really high level questions that you are going to be guided by as you take these steps into your regenerative career. So as you're taking decision about, which of these ideas do I want to commit to right now, what kind of guiding question feels the most helpful to you? And in case the concept's not clear, I'll give an example of what a guiding question might be. So your guiding question could be the one that you've been working on at the moment. Sounds like, which will have the most impact? But what you've noticed about that question is that actually that's getting you a bit stuck, because it's kind of, as we talked about, setting this very high standard. Another question could be, like, which am I most likely to actually move forward with?
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great question.
Would you want to change that question at all? Is there a wording that feels better for you around that kind of guiding question?
No, that seems that an interesting question to look at these ideas, like a lens to look at these ideas. There is something else that's important for me. It's which one bring me joy and happiness. Obviously, it's ideas I have thought of, but if I put myself in, I'm working in the mushroom business and growing mushroom and selling mushroom, or I have this cafe, or I work with companies. Which one is the most exciting one? Could be another way to look at things, maybe.
Yeah, fabulous. I think those are both two really wonderful guiding questions, and I would offer them both to you, not just for this decision now, but for all of the decisions that are coming up, for you to ask both, which is going, which choice, which direction is going to bring me the most joy, and which am I most likely to be able to move forward with, because we've identified that is, that's a real sticking point for you at the moment, is how you actually take those steps. But we also want to take them with joy. So I think that's a beautiful combination. And thinking of those two questions, is there one of these options that stands out to you?
So if I'm with these three options, the idea I'm most likely would move forward with would probably be the mushroom business. I don't know if you want me to go through the reasons why.
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Because it seems feasible and that I can make myself qualified for it. It's something that I feel I can learn and I could get into, and that's quite feasible. Where am I today in my life? But the one that brought me the most joy is it's very hard to pick. Maybe the mushroom as well, just because there probably would be a balance of being in contact with nature, growing something physically, whilst having creativity around that. Why are you different from other people, and why should people go for your mushroom? And I'm not talking just marketing, but what principles are at the core of that idea? What's driving that need to grow those mushrooms?
Wonderful. I mean, it sounds like this is a clear winner at the moment, and it doesn't mean that those other ideas, I would make sure you have those captured somewhere, for ideas that can come back to. And as we said, the mushroom farming could well lead into these other ideas, or give you opportunities to springboard into new directions. But even the way you talk about it, I can feel a real depth of connection to this idea. It doesn't sound at all arbitrary. When you talk about that choice, it sounds like something that is really meaningful to you.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's something I've been toying with for a long time. It's just so different from everything I've done before, which I guess is also kind of the thing that happened when you step out of a corporate. So it's more challenging because it's so different. If I was going into more consultancy roles, it's closer to what I know.
I think with that particular aspect, what I would offer to you, as we start to move the conversation to how you're going to take those first steps and what those first steps might be, I always invite people not to ask too much of the idea in the beginning stages. So I wouldn't at the moment, I would perhaps move away from comparing it to your current corporate role, because there's kind of an implied understanding there that it's going to replace that role at some point, or that there's the expectation that it's going to match that income, or whatever it might be. Even if you're not sort of consciously thinking that, I think by putting them side by side, there's a danger that you put that kind of pressure on this idea. And right now, this is like a little, tiny hatchling of an idea. It's really in the early stages. So we want to treat it really delicately, like it's something really precious. It's just a tiny seedling that's starting to grow.
Oh yeah, no, I like this idea of like not comparing and not trying to replace something. It's just different things. Uh, I think you just unlocked something in my brain, so thank you for that.
Wonderful. Good. Yeah, I think, this is where I see a lot of people getting stuck, is that they want whatever this new thing that they start on, their immediate assumption, because this is how we're kind of conditioned to think, right? You leave one job and you move into another job, and at the very least it needs to be on a par, but really it should be a step up. This is how we're taught. You just take these steps up all the time in your career. And of course, with regenerative work, we're approaching this with a very different mindset. And I think you have the opportunity to nurture that little seedling, but also to just have fun with this idea. Really focus on the joy, that you are going to let yourself play around with mushroom farming and find out what that holds for you.
Yeah, you. Oh, yes. I feel very excited all of a sudden. So that's great.
Tell me about, I want to capture that feeling. What is that excitement feeling like in your body right now?
It's just suddenly it's like in my chest and my head. I'm not drawing like, oh, I will need to make a living. I'm just more like, I will be hand in the soil and trying to figure out what do I want to grow and why and what good does it make. And it's a lot less heavy, a lot more. It's creative instead of being just building blocks.
Yeah.
I'm painting a nice canvas, which is much more exciting for me.
Wonderful. And I really want you to hold on to that feeling, that creative, hands in the dirt feeling. And at any point when you feel a little bit unsure, or those thoughts come back in, which they will, this comparisons start to prop up, just invite yourself back to that feeling that you have now, that that lightness in your chest and your head, and that feeling of creativity. Keep bringing yourself back to that, because that's really going to guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I'll hold on to this moment and just imprinting an image in my head and bring it back when I need it.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's get really practical now. I want to know, what are going to be your first steps, your actual sort of first little, you probably heard me talk about turtle steps, little manageable steps. Let's just pick one for now. What would be the very first step towards your mushroom farming idea?
I guess it would be looking into growing my first mushrooms. How do I go about doing that, and where do I find what I need to grow them that aligns with my values as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would be just going on Google and starting researching and getting what I need to try and see if I can do it.
And I'm wondering if you can set yourself some kind of guardrails for this, because I have an instinct, and please tell me if this feels true to you or not, that because you mentioned that you have so many ideas, does the researching stage feel like that there's a possibility that you might get a little bit stuck inside of that stage?
100%. I am that person who loves school and wanted to always do good for the teachers. So I would do my research very, very well. And then when I step in the real life, it's not as straightforward. So you're right. So maybe it would be a time frame, like by the end of the year, I have got what I need to start growing my first mushroom. I'm not expecting to grow 1,000, just one already would be great.
That's perfect. You are doing it. This is exactly, this is the work, right? And I think that's a really fantastic milestone to set yourself. So we are recording this right at the end of November. So essentially you have 1 month, do your research, do your homework, be the good student, but you're making this commitment that by the end of the month, you're going to be starting to grow that very first mushroom.
Yes, I am making the commitment.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. And Cloé, tell me, the question that you brought to this of joy. As you approach this next month, this researching, the getting the first materials, what ideas do you have for how you can bring as much joy as possible to that process?
Well, including my family in the process.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the reasons why I want to step out of corporate is so I'm a more connected person to my family. So I can see myself showing my daughter and being like, look, we're going to do this and that. And in a couple of weeks or however long it takes, we'll have some mushrooms. And it's just very exciting to, instead of having my daughter mimic me on a laptop sending email, she might be talking about the mushroom I grow, which is just exciting.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, anything else that you want to capture about like how or when or where you might do this exploration?
It's just, I think at first it will be home, just inside. I heard it's usually good in cupboards, so it's probably going to be in my shoe cupboard, and I can see ourselves just walking from the kitchen to have a look if they've grown a little bit or not. It's exciting as well, just because it's something physical, and that's I've never worked with a physical project. It's always been on a laptop and ideas. So that's very exciting to me to see something come to life, really to life, literally.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like we've kind of quite quickly got to a blueprint for how you can move forward with this idea. And I feel the temptation to want to extrapolate out further into the next step and the next step. But I'm going to suggest that we don't do that today, because I think the most important thing for you is that you make this commitment and you follow it through and you have that very first mushroom growing by the end of the year. And actually what I would suggest is like don't let yourself get too far ahead, focus on that joy and that, like you say, actually doing something with your hands and the whole experience of that. And if you can just let yourself be in that moment, and then, once those mushrooms are growing, then you can start thinking about, okay, what is it that I want to do next?
Yeah, and I think that's a good advice because you see, right now in my head, I'm already rushing to. And how would you tell me to deal with when I want to try another idea because there is something else that catch my attention? Instead of being just like, let's live through that, I'm rushing into what will I do if I feel like that. So yeah, sit with this, just be in the moment.
Yeah, and just know that something that really matters for you is seeing this through, is moving out of that idea stage where you're feeling frustrated, or the research stage where you're kind of a little bit too comfortable, and actually growing something. That's a real focus for you.
Yes, it's really to come unstuck because as much as I research right now and look into things, I'm just stuck and I've been there for a long time now. So any steps would be a big progress.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can absolutely do this. Is there anything that you think could potentially get in your way?
At this stage, just trying to get my first mushroom to grow, no, I think I can make that happen. Uh, what what can always get in my way is whenever things take time. It's my mindset and I can't do it, or this isn't viable, or instead of staying with the joy and kind of trusting that process. As I was saying, I've
Mm,
been feeling stuck for a long time now, so it's hard to wait longer for things to come together.
yeah. And I really understand that. I do. And what I would suggest is, how would it feel to have some kind of I can't think of a better word right now than mantra, but I don't want you to take it too seriously, but just some kind of phrase that you can use for yourself when you feel those thoughts pulling on you of like, this needs to happen faster, I should already be doing this, I'm coming to this too late, all of those thoughts that you've kind of shared to me. I'm wondering if there could be some kind of phrase. The one I have in my head is like, I'm getting my hands dirty.
Yeah,
Some
no,
kind of answer to those thoughts.
yes, it's funny how you like this is high function. If I got that sentence to grab onto when I was a young mummy, was "This too shall pass," and it did. So I'm getting my hands dirty. It would be great because it's literal, but also I'm doing something. So let it happen.
Yeah. Exactly. Look at me, I'm getting my hands dirty. And also, like, this is so joyful, I'm getting my hands dirty. I think that's what I would suggest is, like, yes, of course, those thoughts are going to come up at you and they're going to kind of pull at your attention, and you can just remind that, you know, that sort of corporate conditioning that, you know what, I'm getting my hands dirty.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, no, it resonates, and of course it resonates because when you look at a garden, you get your hand dirty a long time before you get anything out of it. So yes, no, I think I'll adopt this mantra.
Perfect. And just to bring us full circle, I know, you know, right at the beginning and even as we were preparing for this call, you kind of shared, you know, your feeling of kind of almost desperation about wanting to make this change and this step out of the corporate world. And, you know, we haven't sat here and talk about your plan to quit. We've talked about your plan to get your hands dirty. So I just want to finish by asking, when you imagine this exploration that you're going to be doing over the next month, these mushrooms that you're going to be growing, this idea that you're really going to be investing in, how do you feel in relation to that kind of urgency and desperation to make change in your corporate work life?
Well, suddenly it doesn't feel that desperate anymore because I've got this kind of like breathing space, but also I'm exploring something. So if it works, then maybe it's my way out. And if it doesn't, I have explored one thing, so I can do it with another, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
I know that it's not going to be the case every day, every minute. But there is this. It's like another path alongside the one I'm on that I'm just creating.
Okay, I'm so excited for you, and I really hope that you will share lots of mushroom updates, because I want to see a picture of that first mushroom. I want to hear all about the process of getting your hands dirty.
Yes, I will share that. And if it comes to fruition, okay, lots of mushrooms, I'll send you some to thank you for all this precious advice you just gave me. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and what a treat that would be. Go and get your hands dirty. Thank you, Cloé. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you, Alisa.
Thank you for listening to the Regenerative Work-Life podcast. It's time to put what you learnt today into practice. Remember, you were called to this work for good reason. Nature needs each and every one of us, and you can do this. If today's episode has been helpful, please take the time to share it with someone who needs a little guidance in stepping out of corporate and into regenerative. Learn more about how I can help you find your vision for a work life filled with purpose, impact, and joy at regenerativeworklife.com, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Alyssa Murphy. I'll see you back here soon for the next episode.